Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Katan, a couple of stories we're going to talk about this evening. BRICS having their 2024 meeting, inviting other countries to join in. Of course, now, they represent half of the world's population and a quarter of the world's gross domestic product. So they are actually gaining a lot of momentum there and giving the dollar quite a run for its money, no pun intended. We're also going to look at some of the violence taking place in Mexico, and we have the latest on the Israeli revenge strikes against Iran, which Israel had promised that they were going to take revenge when and however they saw fit. But first, that great fast food place that everybody likes to go, McDonald's. Well, McDonald's has seen an increase in the number of E. coli cases linked to its restaurant chain. Now, dozens of people across 10 states originally, but has now increased to 13 states, have come down with the illness. 27 people have been hospitalized and one person has died due to the outbreak.
Wow. Colorado had the highest number of E. coli cases. Colorado's state epidemiologist, Rachel Hurley, warns people to, quote, be on the lookout for symptoms. And if you develop symptoms, reach out to your health care provider. Well, while there had not been officially confirmed that raw onions were the source of the outbreak, McDonald's did announce it would indefinitely be halting its supply of onions from a Taylor Farms, Colorado facility. Initially, McDonald's stopped serving quarter pounders at 20% of their almost 14,000 U.S. locations.
Wow. Well, Taylor Farms has voluntarily recalled some of its yellow onions. Taylor Farms told CBS Evening News, quote, our priority remains the health and safety of our consumers. We continue to work with CDC and FDA. Now, one lawyer representing two people who came down with the illness after eating at McDonald's told CBS Evening News, I do expect this outbreak to grow. I would expect the numbers to continue to go up as public health reports more illnesses across the country.
Well, in a statement released by McDonald's, they did say they distributed slivered onions from Taylor Farms to approximately 900 of their stores, including some to transportation hubs such as airports. Well, this could be the reason why there have been illnesses surfacing in additional states as well.
Well, Guerrero is considered the most violent state in Mexico today. So it is no wonder when twin car bombs exploded just outside a police station there. It is believed the explosions took place 30 minutes apart, where coordinated attacks which they considered these were coordinated attacks, and left 3 officers injured and surrounding homes and vehicles seriously damaged. Now, schools and businesses in the surrounding area were closed.
Witnesses who heard the explosions could only see flames and smoke in the aftermath. Drug cartels are believed to be behind the attacks, and the Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum reported on the situation, saying, quote, a federal investigation has now been opened to look into what happened. It is now a federal case because of the use of explosives.
Well, this is just her first month on the job, but President Sheinbaum has only seen an increase in violence. Now, in Guerrero, after only 6 days in office, a mayor was decapitated, and in southern Mexico, Marcelo Perez, a Catholic priest and activist for indigenous peoples and farm laborers, was assassinated. Now, there have also been around 260 killings in the state of Sinaloa, Mexico, and 300 more people have gone missing. Now, it is believed the arrest of one of the largest cartel bosses ignited this wave of violence in the northwestern state.
But for now, President Sheinbaum is determined to continue the mission of the leaders before by investing in social programs that could deter the younger generations from joining in organized crime. Now, the Mexican president said, quote, whether it's Michoacan or Chiapas or Guanajuato or elsewhere in the country, the social support we are providing is helping. But critics do not agree and believe over the last 6 years, the violence has, for the most part, increased in Mexico.
And the public finds it more and more difficult to believe government officials when they say they have the situation under control. The reality for those living a life there, a normal life in Mexico, is mostly a life of uncertainty as cartels fight one another in and around their communities, and the government does nothing to stop it.
You know, and that's one of the things that we've seen in the past, and we've even reported on it, you know, that the cartels down there, it's not beyond them to actually threaten the life of those who are in leadership positions, whether they're governmental or even the police force as well.
Right, and that fear has spread so much so that they don't even want to mess with them because they know their lives are in danger if they do.
But you can kind of see their point. They get tired of it after a while. No one likes to live in fear, and not only the leaders, but the country is living in that fear every day. Well, turning now to the Middle East situation, Israel has conducted what is being called precise strikes on military targets in the country of Iran. Now, these videos we are about to watch will update us on Israel's newest move and how the U.S. has been involved in trying to de-escalate the situation. Please pay close attention to see how things are unfolding.
Sufi Burridge, who is in Israel for us tonight. Tom, this has been talked about for weeks. You've been reporting on this for weeks now, and it seems it is happening. What can you tell us about the build-up to this particular moment?
Well, I mean, clearly, the Israelis have been preparing for this moment for a while now, Phil. They've taken their time, haven't they? I mean, it hasn't come soon, as some officials after the attacks earlier this month on Israel had warned. But look, we've just had a statement from the IDF saying that they have been striking multiple targets in Iran, military targets. And we've also heard from another Israeli official just now confirming that energy and oil sites, Iranian oil and energy sites, are not in amongst the targets. So, what is looking like the case right now, according to all the sources we're hearing from, is that Israel has listened to that demand from the US. The US clearly was pressing Israel not to go after Iran's nuclear and oil sites. I mean, Iran's oil infrastructure is highly valuable to the regime. There were fears about what a strike on oil sites could do to global oil prices, of course, just before the US election. And there were also fears, obviously, about what kind of reprisal attack Iran would go for if Israel were to hit the most sensitive sites, i.e. its oil and its nuclear facilities. That doesn't seem to be the case tonight. We're getting reports from an Iranian news agency saying there are multiple explosions coming out of the Tehran area. We don't know the precise nature of the strikes, the precise targets at this stage, but Israeli officials are underlining that they have gone after military targets. The question right now, I think, is, how will Iran respond? I mean, it might be a bit premature to think about that, but I spoke to a former Israeli brigadier general the other day, and he was warning that he believed that Iran would strike back immediately. And that is the fear, that Iran could go for a very quick reprisal attack. It will depend on the scale and nature of the Israeli strikes. It will potentially, as the Iranian officials have indicated to some media outlets in the last 24, 48 hours, it could depend on how many fatalities there are in these strikes and what exact assets, how prized are the assets to the Iranian regime that Israel is hitting tonight. And that might be the calculus that the Iranian regime has to look at, and then we'll have to see how they respond.
Alice Parks, our White House correspondent. Mary Alice, what is the White House saying tonight? Obviously, the president has been briefed. We've heard the IDF say they are not going after nuclear facilities, which is obviously a sigh of relief there at the White House, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the White House is confirming that the United States was not in any way involved in this response, Phil. I think that is a very important distinction for the United States to make to the world. We know that the United States was actively involved in helping Israel defend against those attacks from Iran, sort of respond and defend against those missile attacks on October 1st. And the Biden administration wanted that to be publicly known, that they were assisting and responding and making sure that that more of those missiles did not make it through. But there is a clear and distinct differentiation happening at the White House between helping Israel defend itself versus actively being a part of this response. Look, I think in the last few weeks, in the last few months, arguably, Phil, there's been a serious conversation about whether President Biden has much influence when it comes to his conversations with Prime Minister Netanyahu, whether Netanyahu is listening to the advice of President Biden. I think that tonight it is clear that the White House is feeling a little bit better on that front. I mean, we know that in the last few weeks, the president has said that he was being briefed by the Israelis, talking personally to Netanyahu about their plans, about his plans to respond here and what they plan to carry out when it came to Israel. We know that when they had the two leaders, when they talked on October 9th, that the Biden administration and the White House felt pretty good that their argument to Israel that it should not go after energy sites, not go after nuclear sites, was well received and was well listened to and respected. And so I think that in this moment, if this does seem to be, as we've been talking about all night, more of a sort of a proportional response, if there's not energy and military sites that were hit, I think the White House is going to feel good that the advice from the president was listened to, and that was a big part of Israel sort of heeding a warning from the United States to try to lower the temperature here, to try to respond proportionally. I thought it was very interesting what Steve Ganyard said there, that we know in the last few weeks the United States has sent military, has sent troops to Israel to be on the ground in Israel, and that maybe that is a part of trying to sort of give Israel an insurance policy, try to make sure that Iran does not respond again because they don't want to risk hurting a U.S. Active duty military member and what that could mean going forward. Looking ahead, Phil, we know that Blinken was just in the region. He's back now, but he said in a press conference in Doha on Thursday that negotiations will resume with Hamas when it comes to the war in Gaza, with trying to find an end to that war and bring the hostages home. We know, of course, President Biden, Vice President Harris have been laser focused on that part of the equation, trying to find an end to the war in Gaza, Phil.
Defense officials are confirming what Mary Alice just told us, that the U.S. has no involvement, or the U.S. says it has no involvement in the Israeli strikes, and that, this is a new piece of information, the U.S. was notified by Israel ahead of time before these strikes happened.
A couple interesting videos there, Katan. You can see that the United States still having a little bit of influence there, telling Israel, don't hit the oil fields and don't hit the nuclear facilities there when they were about to strike Iran. And of course, they even admitted that they were notified beforehand that Israel was about to strike Iran. Well, we're going to now turn to our field correspondent, Larry McGee, who has been working on the BRICS Summit 2024. BRICS continues to grow, continues to challenge the American dollar. Larry, what is the latest on BRICS?
Dissatisfaction with the world's prevailing economic structures produced competition from some of the globe's major players. The most prominent oppositions who emerged so far is BRICS, which recently held a summit in Kazan. Please have a look at this video for details.
An alliance representing more than 1/4 of the world's economy. The BRICS bloc has now doubled its number and is set to expand further. So what's drawing these countries together? And can BRICS offer a counterbalance to the existing world order? Russia is set to host its biggest foreign policy event ever. Leaders representing more than 40% of the world's population are assembling in the southwestern city of Kazan. The 16th BRICS summit will have 5 new members, doubling the group's strength to 10. Leaders from several other countries are also attending. Some of them, like Turkey and Malaysia, have already applied to join the growing alliance. The event gives President Vladimir Putin an opportunity to signal to the West that he has not been isolated because of the war in Ukraine. It's also an occasion for other member states to amplify their voices and policies. So what's behind the rapid expansion of this bloc, and can it become a challenge to the existing global order?
The Russian city of Kazan is preparing to host the 16th annual BRICS summit. It's the bloc's first meeting with 5 new members, as it doubles its membership to 10 in less than 2 decades of its existence. Many say its expansion shows its growing global importance.
BRICS is the voice of the global South in these multilateral platforms where the West dominate. Really, BRICS can take us out of that.
BRICS was set up in 2006 with a desire to be a geopolitical counterweight to the West. Brazil, Russia, China, and India were the founding members. Since then, it's expanded to include South Africa in 2010, and Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates were invited to join the bloc last year. While Riyadh is yet to formally confirm, several other countries have applied for membership.
The key nations responsible for establishing BRICS seek to build and strengthen a viable alternative to the West's economic hegemony executed chiefly through SWIFT. The bloc has produced goals such as boosting financial settlements in local currencies, and its influence is reported to be expanding. It was Moscow who was tasked with hosting the recent summit. Have a look at this video detailing President Putin's pitch to BRICS shareholders.
This week, Russian President Vladimir Putin scored a big win. Despite Western efforts to isolate him, he just wrapped up a BRICS summit. Russia hosted leaders from 36 countries in the city of Kazan, and Putin took this opportunity to make an appeal. He asked BRICS nations to ditch the Western banking order.
The dollar was used as a weapon, it is true, and we see that. I think it is a great mistake by those who do it.
Putin says the West weaponizes the dollar, and he has a point. But what's the solution? Well, he says the BRICS should have their own payment system, an alternative to the Western system, which is called SWIFT. And what is SWIFT? Imagine you're a banker, a customer comes to you, they want to send money abroad, and they give you all the details like how much money needs to be transferred, the bank details of the recipients, and so on. So you have those details. Now it is your job to make sure that the money ends up in the right place. How do you do that? You see, for international transfers, banks have a special messaging system. Think of it as a secure WhatsApp for banks, or their version of it. This system is called SWIFT. So as a bank, when you transfer money for your customer, you open the SWIFT system. There you send a message to the recipient's bank. This message tells them how much money is being sent and where it needs to go. Now, while SWIFT does not move the money itself, it makes sure that the money ends up in the right place. SWIFT stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication, SWIFT. SWIFT is what enables international banking. So the system plays a vital role. Without it, you cannot participate in international banking. So the system plays a vital role. Without it, you cannot participate in international banking. So the system plays a vital role. Without it, you cannot participate in international banking. More than 11,000 banks and financial institutions use the SWIFT system. They are based in more than 200 countries and territories. Now, SWIFT is technically a neutral organization. It is based in Belgium, but the West wields significant influence over SWIFT. The system itself was created by a consortium of US and European banks in 1973. So if Western nations want, they can push a country out of SWIFT, and that's exactly what they did to Russia. When Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, Western nations sanctioned 7 Russian banks. They were removed from the SWIFT system. Effectively, these banks were cut off from global trade and international markets. They could not finance international projects. They could not make or receive payments from their customers outside. So you can imagine why Putin is upset with the Western system and why he's pushing BRICS to come up with an alternative. Another villain in the story is the US dollar. It dominates the global banking system. So Putin is talking about de-dollarization. In fact, BRICS has been discussing this for a while. In the last summit too, de-dollarization came up. South Africa was the host then. BRICS leaders agreed to keep talking, but they haven't been able to come up with any alternatives yet.
For YPN News, I'm Larry McGee. Katan, Jeff, back to you.
Yeah, well, we see that BRICS movement is definitely gaining steam, and as the big concern is, or the big push, is to break down that hegemony of the petrodollar that is dominated by the United States.
Right, and remember, the United States sanctioning Russia because of the war in Ukraine was hoping that they wouldn't be able to do certain things, but now Russia is not as isolated from the world as the United States was hoping that it would be. So now, of course, they're turning to BRICS, and a lot of countries joining in there and not wanting that complete Western dominance.
Options. People want options. Well, Brigadier General Pat Ryder addressed the press from the Pentagon regarding the assassination of Sinwar and how the United States was not directly involved. He said the operation was an Israeli one and the U.S. troops were not directly involved, but were there to be support for them, providing special operation forces who advised Israel on hostage recovery efforts and also helped Israel forces locate Sinwar and other Hamas leaders hiding in Gaza who've been holding people hostage, including American citizens who've been held hostage as well since October 7th of last year.
Now, U.S. President Joe Biden, after landing in Germany, said that he had a phone call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to congratulate him on the important occasion. Now, after getting off the plane, speaking to the press, he said, "It's a good day for the world. I called Benjamin Netanyahu to congratulate him for getting Sinwar. He had a lot of blood on his hands, American blood, Israeli blood, and others."
He continued, and I told him we were very pleased with his actions, and further to that, now is the time to move on towards a ceasefire in Gaza and make sure we're moving in a direction. We'll be in a position to make things better for the whole world. It's time for this war to end and bring the hostages home.
Well, continuing, so that's what we're ready to do. And I'm sending Tony Blinken to Israel. We're going to work out what is the day after now. How do we secure Gaza and move on? Thank you very much.
Well, according to Blinken's spokesman, the purpose of the trip to Israel is to push for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip and to capitalize on the death of Sinwar, who is said to be the one who was responsible for the failure of previous ceasefire proposals. Now, Matthew Miller, who is U.S. State Department's spokesman, said, quote, we don't know who we will be negotiating with now that Sinwar has been removed. I don't want to predict the outcomes just after what is a seismic event, but we believe this is an opportunity to bring an end to this war, and we want to seize this opportunity.
Well, this next video is an interview with retired Colonel Joel Rayburn and TV7 Israel News concerning Israel's recent developments and what it means for Syria. Take a look.
At a time when Israel is making additional gains, operationally speaking, along the contact front, namely roughly 5 to 10 kilometers from Israel's border, with the various terror-infested villages being dealt with as we speak. Colonel Rayburn, I'd like to focus on what this means, or the implications of those developments to the Syrian theater. We're seeing in Idlib, northwestern Syria, Tahrir al-Sham, other organizations designated as terrorist, trying to reassemble their fighting force to confront the Assad regime, which is also making preparations, along with Russia, along with additional Iranian proxies, to try and push back.
Well, I mean, the Assad regime doesn't have the strength to go up against Turkey. The Russians don't have the wherewithal to enable the Assad regime to do that. Hezbollah was a significant factor on the battlefield in Syria, and they're going to be receding. I think there are two big questions out here which aren't settled yet, because the picture is still developing across the northern Middle East. First question is, will the link between Iran and Hezbollah be broken? will the military link, essentially, the military strategic and operational link between those two be broken? That's the first question. And that will depend on the continuing campaign in Lebanon. It will continue on whatever is about to happen between Israel and Tehran, and what is going to happen in the U.S. presidential election, because there are two essentially potentially starkly different Middle East policies between the two contenders on November 5th. People are going to wait to see these develop before we really know how the northern Middle East, the Levant, is going to settle out. One of the questions that's open is that it's obvious, it seems Bashar al-Assad and some of his friends in the Arab world are attempting to rebrand him and his regime as available to help finish breaking the link or disrupting the link between Tehran and Hezbollah, and selling himself that way. You can see there's some, and along with it, the side benefit for some of the European countries of him agreeing to help facilitate refugee returns and so on. That's the nonsense, for example, or misguided, I think, proposition that's coming out of Italy right now, but there are others in Europe, I think, that would field such a question, and there's some others in the Arab world, some countries in the Arab world that would try to help make that connection. So these pictures are unclear yet. We're still, I think, probably a month away from seeing all of the major moves that are likely to take place to be able to recalculate across the northern Middle East on these issues.
Well, all eyes are definitely on Israel, and the concern that many do have, as they've had in times past, and we've mentioned in previous broadcasts, how much will this escalate and how far will it spread within the Middle East?
Right, and everybody is always worried, is this smaller war going to evolve or, go into a regional war there involving many countries? And you can see it is starting to pull other countries in as the war continues to grow.
That's right. And the big concern, especially with the United States, is that oil supply. They do not want that oil supply to be affected at all. Well, if you'd like to learn more about what is taking place or prophesied to take place in the Middle East, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas, 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them by going to any of their websites. You can go to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. If you would like to visit our website, you can go to YPNnews.com. If you would like to email the House of Yahweh, you can email them at info@Yahweh.com. For any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And once again, don't forget to check out the Yisrael Says program by going to YisraelSays.com, or the Ask Yisrael program by going to AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere, because up next, another classic sermon by Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.